Every single second, millions of messages, videos, and searches race across the planet. You might imagine they're bouncing between satellites high above Earth. But that's not what usually happens. In fact, the message you send to someone on the other side of the world will most likely spend almost its entire journey inside glass cables lying on the bottom of the ocean. So how does something as simple as tapping send travel thousands of kilometers across continents and oceans, then reach another phone in what feels like an instant? The internet is something most of us use every day, yet almost nobody ever sees it. We tap a button, a message is delivered. We open YouTube, and a video starts playing within seconds. We make a video call to someone thousands of kilometers away, and it feels almost effortless. It's so reliable that we rarely stop to ask what is actually happening behind the scenes. In this video, we're going to follow one simple action from beginning to end. Imagine you pull out your phone and send a message to a friend who lives on the other side of the world. That tiny tap sets off an incredible journey. Your message will leave your phone as digital data, travel through your home network, enter underground fiber optic cables beneath city streets, cross entire oceans through cables resting on the seafloor, pass through massive data centers filled with thousands of servers, and then make the journey back until it appears on your friend's screen, almost instantly. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where your data goes, how it finds its destination, why the internet relies on underwater cables instead of satellites for most global communication, and how all of this happens so quickly that it feels almost like magic. It all begins with a single tap. You type a message, maybe something as simple as, "Hey, I'll be there in 10 minutes," and press send. It feels like one complete message leaving your phone, but that's not what actually happens. The first thing your phone does is convert everything you've written into digital information. At its core, every piece of data inside a computer or smartphone, from a single letter to an entire movie, is represented using just two numbers, zeros and ones, known as binary. You don't need to understand binary to follow the rest of this journey, but it's important to know that your phone can only process information in this digital form. Now, you might expect your phone to package the entire message into one piece and send it on its way. But that would be surprisingly inefficient. Instead, the internet uses a method called packet switching. Rather than sending one large block of data, your phone breaks it into many much smaller pieces called packets. Think of it like shipping a large jigsaw puzzle to someone across the world. Instead of placing the entire puzzle into one enormous box, you divide it into dozens of smaller packages. Each package is labeled with information about where it's going and how it fits with the others. If one package is delayed, the others can keep moving, and the missing one can simply catch up later. Your message works in much the same way. Even a short text message may be sent as one or more packets, while something much larger, like a photo, a song, or a 4K video, can be split into thousands or even millions of packets. Each packet carries a small portion of the original data along with important information, such as its destination and its position in the overall message. That way, when all the packets arrive, they can be put back together in exactly the right order. This idea might seem like an unnecessary extra step, but it's actually one of the biggest reasons the internet is so reliable. Imagine if an entire movie had to be sent as one giant file. If a tiny part of it were lost somewhere along the journey, the whole thing would have to be sent again. By splitting data into packets, only the missing pieces need to be retransmitted, making communication much faster and far more efficient. At this point, your message hasn't traveled anywhere yet. It has simply been transformed into a collection of tiny digital packets, each ready to begin its own journey. The question is, how do these packets actually leave your phone? To begin their journey, those packets first have to leave your phone. But they don't immediately enter the global internet. Instead, they make a very short trip to one device that's probably sitting somewhere in your home, the Wi-Fi router. This is where one of the biggest misconceptions about the internet begins. Many people think that Wi-Fi is the internet. In reality, Wi-Fi is simply the method your phone uses to communicate with your router without a cable. It's more like the driveway leading out of your house than the highway that takes you across the country. When you press send, your phone converts those digital packets into tiny radio signals. These signals are broadcast through the air over a relatively short distance, usually just a few meters. Your router receives those signals, converts them back into digital data, and prepares to send them onward. If you've ever noticed your Wi-Fi signal getting weaker as you move farther away from your router or walk behind thick walls, it's because these radio waves have a limited range. They're designed to cover your home, office, or a nearby area, not entire cities or countries. In fact, for most people, the wireless part of the internet journey is actually the shortest part. Your data may travel through the air for just a few meters before spending thousands of kilometers inside cables. Now, you might be wondering, what if I'm not using Wi-Fi? The idea is almost exactly the same. If you're using mobile data instead, your phone sends those packets as radio signals to the nearest cell tower instead of your home router. From there, they quickly enter your mobile provider's network, where the journey continues much like it would over a home internet connection. Whether your data reaches a Wi-Fi router or a cell tower, the destination is the same. It needs to enter a much larger network that connects millions of people together. And that's where your internet service provider, or ISP, takes over. Once your data reaches your router, it's finally ready to leave your home. If you could somehow follow those packets with your own eyes, you'd see them disappear into a cable connected to the back of your router. That cable leads to your internet service provider, or ISP, the company that gives you access to the internet. Whether your provider is using fiber optic cables, coaxial cables, DSL phone lines, or a mobile network, their job is the same: to carry your data beyond your home and connect it to the rest of the world. But your message doesn't jump straight from your house to another country. First, it enters a network much closer to home. Imagine your neighborhood as a collection of houses connected by small roads. Every house sends traffic onto those roads before reaching larger streets, then highways, and eventually major interstate routes. The internet works in a surprisingly similar way. Your packets first travel through your local access network. Depending on where you live, this could mean underground fiber optic cables running beneath sidewalks, cables suspended from utility poles, or equipment inside apartment buildings. These local connections all lead to nearby networking equipment operated by your ISP. Here, your message joins an enormous stream of data coming from thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of other people. At this very moment, while you're sending a simple text message, someone nearby could be streaming a movie in 4K, another person could be joining a video conference, someone else might be downloading a new game, and a security camera could be uploading footage to the cloud. All of this information flows through the same infrastructure at the same time. That might sound like it would create complete chaos, but it doesn't. Remember those packets from earlier? Because every packet contains information about where it needs to go, different people's data can travel together through the same cables without getting mixed up. It's similar to a busy highway filled with thousands of vehicles heading to different destinations. They all share the same road, but each driver knows which exit to take. As your packets continue moving through your ISP's network, they begin entering larger and faster connections. Small neighborhood links feed into citywide networks, city networks connect to regional ones, and regional networks connect to massive national and international internet backbones capable of carrying staggering amounts of data every second. These backbone networks are the superhighways of the internet. Built using bundles of high-capacity fiber optic cables, they connect major cities, countries, and eventually entire continents. Every second, they carry everything from video calls and online games to financial transactions, scientific research, and billions of messages just like yours. At this point, your message has officially left your home and joined one of the largest communication networks ever built. But something even more surprising is about to happen. Although we often imagine information traveling as electricity through wires, for most of this journey, your data won't be traveling as electricity at all. It will become something much faster and far more remarkable: light. At first, it sounds impossible. How can a message, a photo, or even an entire movie travel as light? Yet, that's exactly what happens for most long-distance internet communication. While electricity is still used over short distances inside your home or between electronic devices, the moment your data reaches modern fiber optic networks, it's converted into tiny pulses of laser light. Those flashes are so fast that they're completely invisible to us, but each pulse carries digital information, the same zeros and ones your phone created when you press send. Those pulses then begin racing through one of the greatest inventions in modern communication, the fiber optic cable. From the outside, a fiber cable doesn't look particularly impressive. But inside are strands of incredibly pure glass, each one about as thick as a human hair. Despite being made of glass, these fibers are flexible enough to be bundled together into cables that stretch for thousands of kilometers. Now here's the part that seems almost unbelievable. Normally, when light hits glass, it passes straight through. So why doesn't the light simply escape through the sides of the fiber? The answer lies in a fascinating principle of physics called total internal reflection. Each glass fiber is built with two layers. At the center is the core, where the light travels. Surrounding it is another layer called the cladding, made from a slightly different type of glass. That tiny difference changes how light behaves. Instead of escaping, the light repeatedly reflects off the boundary between the core and the cladding, bouncing over and over again while remaining trapped inside the fiber. Imagine rolling a marble through a long, transparent tube. The marble keeps hitting the sides, but never leaves the tube. It simply continues forward until it reaches the other end. Light behaves in a similar way, except instead of rolling, it reflects millions of times every second while racing forward. Because of this clever design, the light can travel enormous distances while staying inside a strand of glass thinner than a hair. And it's incredibly fast. Light moves at nearly 300,000 kilometers per second in a vacuum. Inside glass, it slows slightly to about 200,000 kilometers per second, still fast enough to circle the Earth several times in just 1 second. Of course, the internet isn't just carrying your message. Every second, these same fibers carry countless conversations, video streams, emails, online purchases, cloud backups, and financial transactions, all at the same time. You might wonder how that's possible. If millions of people are using the same fiber cable, wouldn't all those signals collide? The clever solution is that a single fiber doesn't carry just one beam of light. It carries many different wavelengths of light simultaneously, each acting like its own independent communication channel. You can think of it like a highway with dozens of lanes. Instead of every vehicle fighting for the same lane, traffic is spread across many lanes, allowing enormous amounts of data to travel together without interfering with one another. This technology, known as wavelength division multiplexing, is one of the reasons a single fiber optic cable can carry terabits of data every second, enough to support millions of internet users simultaneously. So at this point in our journey, your tiny message has become flashes of laser light, racing through strands of glass at incredible speed alongside billions of other pieces of information. But one important question remains. With millions of cables and billions of devices connected across the world, how does your data know which path to take to reach exactly the right destination? By now, your message has become pulses of light speeding through fiber optic cables. But here's something that might surprise you. Your data doesn't carry a map. It doesn't know the complete route to your friend's phone before it leaves your house. There isn't a tiny GPS inside every packet telling it exactly which roads to follow from start to finish. Instead, your packets make their journey one decision at a time. Along the way, they arrive at specialized computers called routers. If you've ever seen the small router in your home, that's just a simplified version of the same idea. Across the internet are thousands of much larger, far more powerful routers whose only job is to move data as quickly and efficiently as possible. You can think of each router as a highly intelligent traffic intersection. Imagine you're driving across an unfamiliar country. You don't memorize every single turn before leaving home. Instead, at every major intersection, road signs point you toward the next city. Then, once you reach that city, another set of signs points you farther along your journey. That's almost exactly how the internet works. Every time one of your packets reaches a router, the router quickly checks one important piece of information, the destination IP address. An IP address is like the mailing address of a device on the internet. It tells the network where the packet ultimately needs to end up. But the router doesn't calculate the entire trip. It simply asks, what's the best next stop? Within fractions of a second, It looks through a massive routing table, chooses the most appropriate outgoing connection, and sends the packet to the next router. That next router repeats the process. Then the next one. And the next one. This happens over and over again, sometimes dozens of times during a single journey. What's remarkable is how quickly these decisions are made. High-capacity internet routers process millions, sometimes even billions, of packets every second, making forwarding decisions so fast that the delay is almost impossible for humans to notice. Even more surprising, the packets from the same message don't always stay together. Imagine you're traveling with a group of friends to the same destination. One person takes the highway because traffic is light. Another chooses a different road to avoid construction. A third catches a train. Even though everyone starts together, they may arrive by different routes. Internet packets behave much the same way. If one route is congested, another is damaged, or a faster path becomes available, some packets may be sent along entirely different routes. They all share the same destination, but they don't necessarily travel side by side. That flexibility is one of the Internet's greatest strengths. Instead of depending on one fixed road, the network constantly adapts to changing conditions, helping data keep moving even when parts of the system become overloaded or temporarily unavailable. Of course, these routers don't make decisions randomly. Around the world, internet providers exchange information about which networks they can reach using a system called the Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP. You can think of BGP as the Internet's global navigation system, not one that directs individual packets turn by turn, but one that helps entire networks decide the best ways to reach each other. It's one of the key technologies that allows thousands of independent networks to function as a single global internet. By now, your packets have successfully navigated through city networks, regional networks, and national internet backbones. They're moving steadily closer to their destination. But if your friend lives on another continent, there's one final obstacle standing in the way: an entire ocean. Eventually, your packets reach the coastline. If your friend lives in another country or on another continent, your data can't simply keep following underground cables forever. Sooner or later, it reaches one of the most important yet least known pieces of infrastructure on Earth: a submarine cable landing station. From the outside, these facilities often look surprisingly ordinary. Some resemble small industrial buildings near the coast. You could drive past one without ever realizing that it's a gateway for a significant portion of a country's connection to the rest of the world. Inside, however, something remarkable happens. The fiber optic cables running beneath city streets are connected to even larger cables that disappear into the ocean. These aren't just long wires thrown into the sea. They are carefully engineered submarine communication cables that stretch for thousands of kilometers across the ocean floor, connecting continents together into one enormous global network. If you could shrink yourself down and follow your packets into one of these cables, you'd see the same pulses of light continuing their journey, now traveling beneath hundreds or even thousands of meters of seawater. It's a strange thought. The message you sent while sitting on your couch could now be racing through a cable lying on the dark ocean floor, passing underwater mountains, deep sea valleys, and landscapes that almost no human has ever seen. And this isn't just one cable. There are hundreds of submarine fiber optic cables linking countries across the globe, forming a vast web beneath the oceans. Together, they span well over 1 million kilometers, enough to wrap around the Earth many times. More than 95% of international internet traffic travels through these cables, making them the true backbone of the global internet. This surprises many people because satellites receive far more attention. Movies often show information shooting into space before reaching another country. In reality, for almost every international email, video call, online purchase, or streaming video, the data stays underwater instead. But another question naturally comes up. If these cables stretch across entire oceans, how can a light signal travel that far? Even light loses a little strength as it moves through glass. After dozens of kilometers, the signal becomes weaker and weaker. Left alone, it would eventually fade until it could no longer be understood. To solve this problem, engineers place optical repeaters, also called optical amplifiers, along the cable at regular intervals, typically every 50 to 100 kilometers. You can think of them like charging stations on a long road trip. Each repeater receives the weakening light signal, amplifies it without changing the information it's carrying, and sends it on its way again. This process repeats over and over across the entire ocean, allowing the data to travel thousands of kilometers without losing its integrity. What's even more impressive is where these repeaters operate. They're sitting on the seabed under enormous water pressure, often several kilometers below the ocean's surface. Once installed, they may remain there for decades, working continuously without anyone ever seeing them again. Of course, laying these cables isn't as simple as unrolling a giant extension cord. Specialized cable-laying ships carefully lower the cable onto the seabed while following routes that have been surveyed months or even years in advance. Near coastlines, where fishing equipment and ship anchors pose the greatest risk, the cables are often buried beneath the seafloor for protection. In deeper parts of the ocean, where human activity is much lower, they simply rest on the seabed. Considering that these cables are only a few centimeters thick, it's astonishing how much responsibility they carry. At any given moment, they may be transporting billions of messages, financial transactions worth millions of dollars, international phone calls, scientific research, cloud backups, and countless hours of streaming video all simultaneously. By now, your message has completed one of the most extraordinary parts of its journey. It has crossed an entire ocean, not through satellites orbiting above the Earth, but through a strand of glass lying silently on the ocean floor. Which raises an obvious question. If satellites seem so much more futuristic, why doesn't the internet use them for everything? At this point, you might be thinking, if we can put satellites into space, why go through the trouble of laying thousands of kilometers of cable across the bottom of the ocean? It's a reasonable question. After all, satellites sound like the perfect solution. Instead of digging trenches through cities and stretching cables between continents, why not simply beam everything through space? The answer comes down to one thing: distance. No matter how fast technology becomes, nothing can travel faster than light. So the farther your data has to travel, the longer it takes to arrive. Let's imagine you send a message from Europe to North America. Using a submarine fiber optic cable, your data follows a relatively direct route across the Atlantic Ocean. The signal travels through glass at roughly 200,000 kilometers per second, reaching the other side in just a tiny fraction of a second. Now imagine taking a very different route. Instead of staying on Earth, your message first has to travel all the way into space to a satellite. Then the satellite has to send it back down to Earth. Depending on the type of satellite, that extra distance can be enormous. For many years, most communication satellites were placed in geostationary orbit, about 36,000 kilometers above Earth's surface. That means a signal has to travel up to the satellite and back down again before it even reaches its destination on Earth. For a two-way conversation, like a video call or an online game, the signal often has to make this trip multiple times. Even though the signal is still moving at the speed of light, that's simply a much longer journey. The result is something called latency, the delay between sending information and receiving a response. For activities like watching television broadcasts, a slight delay isn't a major problem. But for online gaming, video calls, financial trading, or simply making the internet feel responsive, even a few hundred milliseconds can make a noticeable difference. This is why fiber optic cables remain the preferred option for most global internet traffic. They offer lower latency, enormous capacity, and exceptional reliability. That doesn't mean satellites are useless. Far from it. In recent years, companies have begun launching low Earth orbit, or LEO, satellites. Unlike traditional communication satellites, these orbit much closer to Earth, typically a few hundred kilometers above the surface instead of tens of thousands. Because they're so much closer, signals don't have to travel nearly as far, dramatically reducing latency. That's why services like Starlink can provide internet connections that feel much more responsive than older satellite systems. But even these newer satellite networks don't replace submarine cables. Instead, they solve a different problem. Running fiber to every location on Earth simply isn't practical. Remote islands, ships crossing the ocean, Aircraft flying at high altitude, research stations in the Arctic, and rural communities far from existing infrastructure can all be extremely difficult or incredibly expensive to connect using cables. For those places, satellites are often the best solution. So rather than competing with each other, fiber optic cables and satellites work together. Fiber handles the overwhelming majority of the world's internet traffic because it's faster, carries far more data, and connects the busiest parts of the planet. Satellites extend that connectivity to places where cables can't easily reach. So while satellites capture most of the headlines, the reality is much less dramatic and far more impressive. The internet's true backbone isn't floating above our heads. It's hidden beneath our feet and beneath our oceans. But your message still hasn't reached its destination. After crossing continents and oceans, it's finally approaching the place people casually refer to as the cloud. After traveling through cities, crossing countries, and even passing beneath an ocean, your message is finally approaching its destination. But contrary to what the name suggests, it isn't heading into a cloud floating somewhere in the sky. In fact, the cloud is one of the biggest misconceptions in modern technology. There is no mysterious place where your photos, emails, or videos simply exist. Every file you've uploaded, every website you've visited, every movie you've streamed, and every message you've sent ultimately lives on real computers sitting inside real buildings. These buildings are called data centers. From the outside, many of them look surprisingly ordinary. Some resemble warehouses or office buildings with very few windows. Unless you knew what was inside, you might drive right past one without giving it a second thought. Inside is a completely different story. Instead of shelves filled with products, the building is packed with long rows of metal racks. Each rack holds dozens of powerful servers, specialized computers designed to run continuously, day and night, every day of the year. A single large data center can contain tens of thousands of servers, all connected together through incredibly fast networking equipment. Some of the world's largest hyperscale data centers contain hundreds of thousands of servers spread across multiple buildings. These are the machines that power the services billions of people use every day. When you search on Google, your request is processed by servers in data centers. When you stream a movie on Netflix, the video comes from servers in data centers. When you upload a photo to Instagram, store a document in Google Drive, or send a message through WhatsApp, servers inside data centers are receiving, processing, and storing that information. So, where does your message go? Let's continue following it. After crossing the global internet, your packets finally arrive at the data center where the messaging service is running. The routers inside the facility guide the packets to the correct server, much like mail being sorted to the correct office inside a huge company. Remember that your message was split into many packets before it left your phone. When those packets reach the server, they're carefully reassembled into the original message. Only after every required piece has arrived can the server fully understand what you sent. Now the server gets to work. It checks who the recipient is, verifies that your account is valid, determines whether your friend is currently online, stores the message if necessary, and prepares to deliver it to the correct device. All of this happens in just milliseconds. What's remarkable is that your message isn't the only thing these servers are handling. At the exact same moment, they could be processing millions of other requests from people around the world. Someone is uploading vacation photos. Someone else is joining a video meeting. Another person is asking an AI assistant a question. Millions of YouTube videos are being streamed, online games are exchanging information between players, and businesses are processing payments, all at the same time. Despite this enormous workload, everything continues running because these data centers are designed for reliability. If a server fails, another one can often take over almost immediately. They have backup networking equipment, multiple internet connections, emergency generators, and massive battery systems ready to keep everything operating even during power outages. In many facilities, cooling systems run constantly because the thousands of servers generate enough heat to warm entire buildings. This is why people often say it's stored in the cloud. The cloud isn't a magical place. It's simply a worldwide network of data centers connected by the same fiber optic infrastructure your message has been traveling through since it left your phone. At this point, the hardest part of the journey is over. The server has received your message, processed it, and knows exactly where it needs to go next. Now it has one final job. Send the message all the way back across the internet, this time to your friend's phone. At this point, you might think the journey is over. The server has received your message, understood it, and knows who it's meant for. But in reality, you've only completed half of the trip. Now the entire process begins again, only this time in reverse. The server takes your message and, just like your phone did earlier, divides it into packets. Each packet is given the destination address of your friend's device and is sent back into the internet. From there, the packets leave the data center and begin hopping from router to router once again. Just like before, no packet has a complete map of the journey. Each router simply checks the destination, decides the best next step, and forwards the packet onward. This process repeats over and over across cities, countries, and, if necessary, entire oceans. Here's something even more interesting. The return journey doesn't necessarily follow the exact same route. Imagine you're driving home after work. In the morning, you might have taken the highway because traffic was light. But on the way back, an accident blocks the road, so your navigation app suggests a completely different route. The internet works in a similar way. Conditions across the network are constantly changing. A link might become congested because millions of people are streaming a major sporting event. A router could be temporarily overloaded. A maintenance operation might take one connection offline. If that happens, routers can choose a different path for some or all of the packets. As a result, two packets that left the same server at the same time might travel through different cities, or even different countries, before arriving at the same destination. That sounds risky, but it's actually by design. Remember the numbered puzzle pieces we talked about earlier? Each packet carries information that tells the receiving device where it belongs in the original message. So even if packet number 8 arrives before packet number 3, your friend's phone knows exactly how to put everything back into the correct order. If one packet is delayed, the phone simply waits for it. And if a packet never arrives because it was lost somewhere along the journey, the missing one can be requested again without sending the entire message from the beginning. This ability to take different routes, arrive at different times, and still reconstruct the original information is one of the reasons the internet is so resilient. It doesn't depend on every piece following a single perfect path. Instead, it assumes that networks are busy, delays happen, and occasional failures are normal, and it has been designed to handle all of them. Eventually, the packets reach your friend's internet service provider. From there, they travel through the local network, arrive at the nearest cell tower or home router, and finally make the short wireless journey to your friend's phone. The phone collects the incoming packets, checks that everything has arrived correctly, reassembles them into the original message, and hands the completed information to the messaging app. Only then does your friend see a simple notification appear on the screen. "Hey, I'll be there in 10 minutes. From your perspective, it looked almost instantaneous. But behind that tiny notification was a remarkable journey involving laser light, fiber optic cables, underwater infrastructure, powerful routers, and massive data centers, all working together in perfect coordination. Which raises one final question. If your data can travel thousands of kilometers, pass through dozens of routers, cross oceans, and return in less than a second, how is the internet actually this fast? When you think about everything your message has just done, it almost doesn't make sense. In the time it took you to blink, your data left your phone, traveled through your home network, crossed your city, moved through national internet backbones, possibly crossed an ocean, reached a massive data center, was processed by powerful servers, and then made the entire journey back to another device. So why doesn't this take several minutes? The answer isn't just that the internet is fast. It's that every part of the internet has been carefully engineered to eliminate unnecessary delays. The first reason is the obvious one: speed. As we've already seen, most long-distance internet traffic travels as pulses of light through fiber optic cables. Although light slows slightly when passing through glass, it's still traveling at roughly 200,000 kilometers per second. At that speed, crossing an ocean takes only a tiny fraction of a second. But speed alone isn't enough. Imagine driving on a highway where every toll booth stops you for several minutes. Even if your car is incredibly fast, you'd still spend most of your trip waiting. The internet avoids this problem because routers make forwarding decisions incredibly quickly. Specialized networking hardware can examine packets and decide where to send them in millions, or even billions of a second. Instead of stopping to think, routers are built to make these decisions almost instantly. There's another clever trick that makes the internet feel even faster. Imagine you live in London and want to watch a viral YouTube video. If every single viewer had to stream that video directly from one server in California, millions of people would be competing for the exact same connection across the Atlantic Ocean. That would be slow, expensive, and incredibly inefficient. Instead, internet companies use something called a content delivery network, or CDN. Rather than storing one copy of a video in a single location, they keep copies on servers all around the world. So when you press play, your request is often sent to a server that's already in your country, or sometimes even your city, instead of traveling halfway around the world. Think of it like a library. Imagine there was only one library on Earth, and every person had to fly there whenever they wanted to borrow a book. It would be complete chaos. Now imagine building thousands of local libraries instead. Suddenly, almost everyone can find the same book just a short distance from home. That's exactly what CDNs do for the internet. They place popular content closer to users, dramatically reducing the distance data has to travel. This is why a YouTube video often starts playing almost immediately, even though YouTube itself is a global platform. The video you're watching may not be coming from YouTube's main servers at all. It could be arriving from a nearby caching server that's already storing a copy. In fact, the internet is constantly trying to avoid repeating work. Popular websites, images, videos, and software updates are cached in multiple locations, so they don't need to travel across continents every single time someone requests them. Another reason everything feels so fast is that the internet does many things at the same time. When you open a modern website, your browser doesn't wait for one image to finish downloading before requesting the next one. It asks for dozens, or sometimes hundreds, of different files simultaneously. Text, images, videos, fonts, buttons, and animations are all downloaded in parallel, making the page appear much faster than if everything arrived one after another. Even your device is helping. While new packets are still arriving, your phone or computer often begins displaying information immediately instead of waiting for every last piece to finish downloading. That's why a web page might show text before images, or why a video can begin playing before the entire file has been downloaded. Of course, the internet isn't always perfectly fast. Sometimes videos buffer, websites load slowly, or video calls freeze. When that happens, it's usually because one part of the journey has become a bottleneck. Your Wi-Fi signal might be weak. Your local internet connection could be congested. A server might be handling unusually high demand. Or the route between you and the destination may simply be busier than normal. But considering the incredible journey every request takes, those occasional delays are actually the exception. The remarkable thing isn't that the internet sometimes slows down. The remarkable thing is that this unimaginably complex global system works as reliably as it does. And perhaps the most impressive part is that we rarely stop to think about it. Every search, every message, every video call, every online purchase, and every stream depends on millions of kilometers of fiber optic cables, countless routers making split-second decisions, and enormous data centers processing billions of requests. All so quickly that the entire journey feels almost invisible. Which makes one final question worth asking. What happens when part of this enormous system suddenly breaks? By now, the internet almost sounds indestructible. Millions of kilometers of fiber optic cables, thousands of routers, hundreds of underwater cables connecting continents, massive data centers filled with countless servers. Surely, if just one important piece failed, the entire system would come crashing down. Surprisingly, that's not how the internet was designed. One of the biggest reasons the internet has become so reliable is that it was built with the expectation that things will fail. Every day, somewhere in the world, something goes wrong. Construction crews accidentally dig through underground fiber optic cables. Power outages take equipment offline. Hardware inside data centers eventually fails. Software bugs cause network problems. Even severe storms, floods, earthquakes, and wildfires can damage parts of the internet's infrastructure. And yes, even those enormous submarine cables crossing the oceans can be damaged. Despite resting deep beneath the sea, they're not completely safe. Near coastlines, where ships frequently travel and fishing boats operate, anchors and fishing equipment are among the most common causes of cable damage. In deeper parts of the ocean, underwater landslides and earthquakes can occasionally break multiple cables at once. Considering how much of the world's communication depends on these cables, you might expect a single break to disconnect entire countries from the internet. But in most cases, that's exactly what doesn't happen. Remember when we talked about routers making decisions one step at a time? That flexibility becomes incredibly important when something goes wrong. Imagine you're driving to work and discover that your usual bridge is closed. You don't simply park your car and give up. You check for another route and continue your journey. The internet does the same thing. If a router detects that one connection is no longer available, it can begin forwarding packets along a different path. Since the global internet is built from thousands of interconnected networks with many alternative routes, data can often go around the problem instead of stopping altogether. Sometimes this rerouting happens so quickly that users never even notice anything has changed. In larger failures, you might notice a website loading more slowly or a video buffering for a few seconds while traffic shifts to other available connections. But even then, communication usually continues. The same idea applies inside data centers. Imagine you're shopping at a supermarket with 20 checkout counters. If one cashier suddenly closes their lane, the store doesn't shut down. Customers simply move to the other available counters. Modern data centers are designed in much the same way. Critical services don't rely on a single server, a single power source, or even a single internet connection. Instead, they use multiple servers working together, backup power systems, duplicate networking equipment, and connections to several different internet providers. If one component fails, another is already waiting to take over. Some of the largest online services even duplicate their data across multiple data centers in different cities or different countries. That way, if an entire facility experiences a major outage, another location can continue serving users. This ability to adapt is one of the internet's greatest strengths. There is no single master computer controlling the entire internet. No central switch that can simply be turned off. Instead, the internet is a vast collection of independent networks, all cooperating while constantly adjusting to changing conditions. New routes are found, damaged equipment is repaired, failed servers are replaced, and traffic keeps flowing. Of course, major outages can still happen. If multiple submarine cables are damaged in the same region, or if a large cloud provider experiences a significant failure, millions of people may temporarily lose access to certain websites or online services. But these events are relatively rare precisely because so much effort goes into building redundancy at every level of the system. In many ways, the internet behaves less like a single machine and more like a living transportation network. Roads close. Bridges are repaired. Traffic jams form. New highways open. Yet somehow, people continue reaching their destinations. The internet works in much the same way. Every second, it is constantly adjusting, rerouting, and recovering, all without most of us ever realizing it. And that's what makes the journey of a single message so extraordinary. From the moment you tapped send, an invisible global system involving light, glass, oceans, routers, and millions of computers quietly worked together to deliver just a few simple words. Now that we've followed every step, let's put the entire journey together one last time. Imagine you're sitting on your couch, holding your phone. You type a message, "See you soon," and press send. In less time than it takes you to blink, your phone converts those words into digital data and splits them into tiny packets. Each packet is labeled with the information it needs to find its destination before being transmitted as radio waves to your Wi-Fi router or to the nearest cell tower if you're using mobile data. From there, your internet service provider takes over. Your packets leave your home and enter a vast network of underground cables, neighborhood connections, city networks, and high-capacity internet backbones shared by millions of other people. They race through strands of glass as tiny pulses of laser light, traveling at nearly two-thirds the speed of light in a vacuum. Along the way, they arrive at one router after another. Each router makes a decision in a tiny fraction of a second, asking only one question. Where should this packet go next? One by one, your packets are guided through the fastest available routes, crossing cities, countries, and, if necessary, entire continents. If your message is headed overseas, it eventually reaches a cable landing station on the coast before entering one of the submarine fiber optic cables lying silently on the ocean floor. There, beneath thousands of meters of seawater, the pulses of light continue racing through glass, passing optical amplifiers that strengthen the signal every few dozen kilometers until the cable reaches another continent. After emerging from the ocean, your packets continue through another series of routers until they finally arrive at a massive data center. Inside, powerful servers receive the packets, reassemble them into the original message, process the request, determine who should receive it, and then immediately prepare a response. The journey then begins all over again. Your message is divided into packets once more, routed across the global internet, sent through fiber optic cables, guided by routers, and eventually delivered through your friend's internet service provider. Finally, the packets reach your friend's router or nearby cell tower, make the short wireless trip to the phone, and are reassembled into the exact message you originally typed. A simple notification appears on the screen. See you soon. To your friend, it looks completely ordinary. To both of you, it feels almost instantaneous. But hidden behind that single notification was one of the most sophisticated engineering systems humanity has ever created. Thousands of independent networks worked together without anyone manually directing them. Routers made millions of decisions every second. Lasers carried information through strands of glass thinner than a human hair. Underwater cables connected entire continents. Massive data centers processed your request in milliseconds. And all of it happened so seamlessly that you never noticed. The internet often feels invisible because the technology is hidden from view. The cables are buried beneath streets. The data centers sit quietly behind secure walls. The routers work silently inside buildings you've probably walked past countless times. And the submarine cables rest on the ocean floor, far beyond where anyone can see them. Yet together, these hidden systems make it possible for billions of people to communicate, learn, work, shop, play, and share ideas with someone on the other side of the world almost instantly. The next time you send a message, start a video call, stream a movie, or search for something online, remember what's really happening. That tiny tap on your screen isn't just sending information. It's launching an extraordinary journey through one of the largest, fastest, and most remarkable networks ever built by human beings. It's easy to think of the internet as something invisible, almost like it's simply there. We open an app, send a message, watch a video, or search for information without giving it a second thought. But as we've seen, there's nothing magical about it. Behind every click is an enormous physical network built over decades by millions of engineers, technicians, construction workers, researchers, and companies around the world. Every message depends on routers making split-second decisions, lasers carrying information through glass fibers thinner than a human hair, data centers processing billions of requests, and submarine cables quietly connecting continents beneath the oceans. What's perhaps most remarkable isn't just the scale of the system, it's how seamlessly it all works together. Thousands of independent internet providers, countless servers, and millions of kilometers of cables cooperate every second without a central controller directing every packet. If one route becomes unavailable, traffic is redirected. If a server fails, another takes over. If demand suddenly spikes, the network adapts. The internet was built to keep moving, even when parts of it don't. And that's why we rarely notice it. The greatest engineering achievements often become invisible once they become reliable. We don't think about the electricity flowing through the walls when we switch on a light. We don't think about the pipes beneath our streets when we turn on a faucet. And most of the time, we don't think about the incredible journey our data takes every time we go online. Yet every search, every video call, every online game, every streamed movie, and every message you send is riding on one of the most complex communication systems humanity has ever created. The next time you tap send, you'll know that your message isn't disappearing into an invisible cloud. It's beginning an extraordinary journey through cities, across countries, beneath oceans, and into massive data centers before arriving at its destination, all in less than a second. And once you understand what's happening behind the scenes, it's hard to look at the internet the same way again.